Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over Destiny of X. And we actually do pick up with Rogue and Gambit's miniseries that came out earlier this year for Marvel Comics. Now, when it comes to Rogue and Gambit, this is Marvel truly saying that we know that we have a lot of great couples in comics. We got Cyclops and Jean Grey, Spider-Man, Mary Jane, Reed and Sue. Heck, you could even say Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. But when it comes to Rogue and Gambit, they're up there with the rest of the couples. And the reason why, because thanks to comics, but also cartoon shows, especially the 1990s X-Men cartoon show, there's a lot of fans out there for Rogue and Gambit's relationship. And so when this book got announced, there were a lot of fans hyped for this book. Now, there is another reason why, because a few years ago, we had another miniseries that truly did focus on Rogue and Gambit, and that did well. And matter of fact, it got a sequel called Mr. and Mrs. X, and that also did well. And so there was a lot of hope for this book. Unfortunately, this book did get a lot of negative reviews. Now, I did read some of the comments when it came to this book, and there were some comments that made no sense, but at the same time, there were some comments that did make sense. And I want to say that I truly did enjoy this book, but I'm not going to sit down and say it's the best thing ever for Rogue and Gambit. No. But at the same time, it's not the worst thing ever for Rogue and Gambit. Either way, let's go ahead and dive into this book. And so getting into the opening pages of this book, we do pick up with Gambit right now, fighting against members of the Thieves Guild. Now, when it comes to the Thieves Guild, they do have a huge connection to Gambit. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to sit down here and basically explain the entire Thieves Guild to you guys, because they don't really play a major role in the entire storyline of Rogue and Gambit. All you need to know is that when it comes to Gambit, apparently he did something to them again, and so they're mad at him and they're trying to attack him. Now, with that being said, Gambit is having a hard time defending himself, and the reason why? Because he is drunk. And of course, with you being drunk, you're not really the best fighter. Now, luckily for Gambit, Rogue does step in, but with these first few pages, we can tell that there is some problems right now between Gambit and Rogue. And as we go through this book, we do learn what those problems truly are. But then we have to jump over to Lady Deathstrike. Now, when it comes to Lady Deathstrike, this is where I had another problem with this book. And the reason why, because there was an earlier X-Men issue where you had Laura Kinney go out of her way to save Deathstrike and then let her be free. And I thought, okay, she'll be out there in the world to come back for a later story. Except when you jump into this book right here, she's a prisoner again, and right now being transported somewhere else. Again, I'm like, okay, whatever. Either way, while she's being transported, that is when you do have somebody being able to break her free. Now, we have no idea who was able to break her free, but someone did. And the question is, though, why? And that's a very good question, because when we last saw her, we were left to believe that there could be a possibility that she'll be more of an anti-hero now, no longer a bad guy. And so then we jump over to Rogue and Gambit. Now, when we do, it is the two characters right now still fighting against each other. And honestly, this shows that there is something really major going on with their relationship. Now, with that being said, we actually do see Destiny arrive in their room. Now, when it comes to Destiny, her and Mystique are the adoptive mothers of Rogue, which makes them Gambit in-laws. And this leads into my first problem with X-Men fans. And what I mean by that is, I saw a lot of comments when it came to this book, and a lot of fans said they hated the idea of how Gambit in-laws treat him. Like apparently Mystique and Destiny should be treating Gambit with all kind of respect and love. And I'm sitting here wondering why. Because this is Mystique, this is Destiny. They have been bad guys in X-Men comics for years. And I mean literally for years. But on top of that, Mystique always has an attitude with almost everybody except one person, and that is Destiny. And Destiny has been saying that even though Rogue has married Gambit, she still does not like Gambit because again, she has been a bad guy for most of X-Men comics. It only makes sense that yeah, his in-laws would not like him. I saw a lot of fans mad about this. Either way, you have Destiny tell Rogue and Gambit that they need to find Manifold. She had a vision, and with her vision, she does see a huge war coming down the road for the mutant race. And to make sure their race survives, the first step is to grab Manifold. Now, Manifold is a mutant as well, but apparently, for some strange reason, he is a major key in the survival of the mutant race. And so you have Gambit and Rogue go right over to where Manifold is at. And apparently, Destiny told Rogue that they need to bring Manifold back to Krakoa, but to a certain point on the island for unknown reasons. And so when you have Rogue and Gambit both go over to see Manifold, he says, heck no, I'm not going with you guys at all. Especially not going if Destiny wants me, which honestly shows that yes, Destiny has been a major, not a major, but she has been a bad guy in X-Men comics for many years. And this goes right back to my earlier comment. You guys are really mad at the idea of how Destiny is treating her son-in-law Gambit, even though she has always, and I mean always, hated him. Literally hated him. Either way, when it comes to Gambit and Rogue, they're like, hey man, listen, Destiny says there's some huge war coming and we need your help. And he says no. But you know what? If you help me, then I might help you as well. And we kind of find out that Manifold found out that a lot of different characters, mostly villains, have been getting kidnapped left and right. And we saw that earlier with Lady Deathstrike, where she got kidnapped. But apparently so have other characters as well. And when it comes to Manifold, he's saying, I feel like someone is going around kidnapping villains and trying to sell them to other countries as a way to use those people to protect their countries from us, the mutants. And I kind of find out that there is an ambassador right now from Great Britain going to a very private meeting. And I want to see why that meeting is so private. Now, when it comes to the ambassador from Great Britain, and honestly, I had a hard time trying to pronounce his name, so I'm not going to try here in this video. Just know that we actually saw this character in the earlier issues of the latest Excalibur series that came out at the Dawn of X era of X-Men comics. Either way, when it came to this ambassador, he's really big on the idea of having Great Britain turn their backs on the mutants, especially their Captain Britain, because Betsy Braddock is a mutant. Either way, the reason why he's here right now is to make a purchase. And right now, he is purchasing Lady Deathstrike. And this shows us that after she was being broken free, she was then taken hostage, and then somehow they were able to do an implant on her where they are now able to control her completely with just a remote. She is literally under the control of this new organization. Now, we have no idea who is this new organization, but apparently Deathstrike is not the first person to get kidnapped and then be sold to somebody across the world. And again, it seems like right now you have different countries going out of their way to try to get different weapons to protect their countries from the mutants, just in case there is a huge war down the road. Now, when it comes to this meeting, it does get interrupted by Rogue, Gambit, and Manifold, where it does look like our heroes should be able to win the battle, except out of nowhere, Rogue, Gambit, and Manifold powers, they get shut off, just like that. And so unfortunately, our heroes now have to fight with their bare hands and feet to hopefully survive. Now, when it comes to Manifold, he realized, okay, this is clearly not going to work out for us. And so he does have just enough power left to be able to teleport Rogue and Gambit away from this area. But unfortunately, he could not save himself. And so, even though he got them out of there, he has now been captured by this new group that is going around kidnapping different people and then selling them as weapons. And right now, Manifold is going to be the next one. And so getting into the next chapter, we actually do pick up with Rogue and Gambit in the middle of Nevada, just walking. Like, they're not near Vegas, they're somewhere out in the middle of the desert, just walking, because Manifold had to quickly teleport them away to get them out of danger. But unfortunately, he could not get them somewhere, maybe home or the Avengers base, just out in the middle of the desert. And so you do have our heroes just trying to make their way to a nearby town. We then pick up with Manifold, and when we do, we see him in some kind of prison cell. Now, with him being inside this prison cell, it really does show that sooner or later, he is going to be just like the other people that have been kidnapped so far by this new organization. They're going to put something inside his body that is going to give them the ability to control him. Now, it's not like mind control where they have some kind of psychic nearby to control his mind. It's some kind of device that they have the ability to use on him to control his body, to make him do whatever they want him to do. And so you have our new mysterious bad guy say, sooner or later, you are going to fall in line with the other people that I have kidnapped. And once you do, I'm then going to sell you like you're some kind of merchandise to be bought. Because again, other countries are trying to buy weapons right now to help them protect themselves against the mutant race. And matter of fact, in our last video when it came to the X-Men, well, we covered an X-Force story where we did see, again, other countries trying to buy different weapons as a way to protect themselves against the mutants just in case things go south. And that trend is now continuing across the board. Now, when it comes to the second chapter of this book, you do have Rogue and Gambit being able to arrive in some kind of small town. Now, when it comes to the small town, it truly is a small town. Like, you could tell by the vibe by it. Either way, when they do arrive, there's no hatred towards Gambit and Rogue. Like, yes, when they do walk in, everyone knows, oh, you're mutants, okay. And the thing is, they don't get any kind of trouble for that. Matter of fact, they're very welcome into the actual bar just because of who they are and the things they've done for the entire world. Matter of fact, one of the guys recognized Rogue. He's all like, you saved the world before, so I like you a whole lot. I don't care if you're a mutant or not, you saved the world, and so you're right in my book. And so you have Gambit and Rogue being able to chill at this bar, have a few drinks, have a few dance-offs. It's a great thing for them. Now, when it comes to Rogue, it's now time to hopefully find a phone to call up somebody to get back home and then begin the process of saving Manifold. Except while you have Rogue telling Gambit that, somebody else walks into the bar. And that would be, well, Black Panther. Because apparently before Manifold had left with Rogue and Gambit, he told Black Panther what was going on with Destiny. He told Black Panther that, hey, out of nowhere, Rogue and Gambit appeared. When they did appear, they told me that for some strange reason, Destiny wanted me to come to Krakoa to a certain point, and I have no idea why. And honestly, I don't trust Destiny at all. But now I cannot trust Rogue nor Gambit, because if they're working for her, that means right now they can no longer be trusted, because she has been a bad guy for a very long time in Marvel Comics. And so it's Manifold telling Black Panther in the past, if anything happens to me, you know who to blame. which is Rogue and Gambit. Now, this does lead into your usual superhero fight. You have Black Panther fight against both Rogue and Gambit. Now, I did see a lot of people also get very upset about the idea of Gambit not being able to go toe-to-toe with Black Panther. And here's my thing, guys. When it comes to Gambit, he's a great hand-to-hand combat person. But so is Black Panther. But he's on another different level. Like, Black Panther is one of the best fighters across Marvel Comics. It's not fair to say, oh my god, I hate this book because Gambit is not able to fight against Black Panther. No, it makes no sense because it is Black Panther. He has way more training than Gambit ever had in his entire life. And so it does make sense to see Black Panther being able to get one over on Gambit. Either way, while the fight goes on, Gambit realized that when it comes to Black Panther, he will always save an innocent person before trying to take down somebody that he wants to bring down. So for example, you have Gambit tie a woman near an oven and she needs help before that oven could possibly explode and kill her. And so you have Black Panther stop fighting against Gambit and Rogue to save that woman. And it gives our heroes enough time to get on a motorcycle and just drive away. But the thing is though, it's Rogue saying, listen, he'll keep chasing us down until we are actually able to save Manifold and he can clear our name. Which means that right now, we have to find a way to find Manifold. And you have Rogue say, wait, I know somebody who has the ability to actually track mutants. And the person that she is talking about is no other than, well, Forge. Because let's not forget, Forge did make a suit that did have the ability to actually track mutants. And so then we jump over to Mystique checking up on Destiny. Now, when it comes to Mystique, she's very worried about her wife, which honestly, she has the right to, because when it comes to Destiny, she's always looking into the future. Now, originally, the way her powers work were very unique. And what I mean by that is she had the ability always to look into the future. But originally in Marvel Comics, they told us that most of the time what she sees are just possibilities. They're not for sure going to happen down the road for a certain character or for herself. Now, in recent years, Marvel kind of changed how her powers truly worked. And what I mean by that is, yes, when she does still look into the future, she does see possibilities of future things happening to the world, except now she does have a better chance of seeing actual events by using Nexus points. Nexus points are technically points in time that are for sure going to happen. And so with Destiny, she's able to use those points as a way to guide herself through the future timeline to figure out what could possibly happen down the road for her or the rest of the mutant race. And so because of that, she realized that a war most likely is coming down the road. And when it comes to this war, it all comes down to different things happening to make sure the mutants do survive. And so that is why it's so important to her that Rogue and Gambit do get Manifold and bring him back over to Krakoa. Now we do jump over to Rogue and Gambit, and when we do, it's really more of Rogue and Gambit coming here to Forge Lab to ask to borrow his suit. Now, here's the thing, when it comes to Forge suit, and we saw this in an earlier X-Men issue, but when it came to Forge, he was able to create a new kind of suit that had the DNA of Mystique and another character known as Caliban. Now, Caliban is more important right now than Mystique. And the reason why, because when it comes to Caliban, he does have the mutant ability to track other mutants. And that is very important. And the reason why, because when it came to Forge, he technically made a clone of Caliban and modified that clone's body to be part of his armor suit so that Forge had the ability to go almost anywhere to kind of track mutants down. Now, we saw that in an earlier X-Men storyline, but apparently at the end of that storyline, he got rid of the suit. Now, here's the thing though. Rogue heard about him doing that, him creating this suit. Gambit did not. But for Gambit, he feels betrayed. And the reason why, because he feels like if Rogue knew something about that, Rogue should have told him about that as well. But she did not. It seemed like she was trying to keep a secret from him. And so right now is Gambit saying, how dare you keep something like this from me? You're my wife. You should have told me that you knew something about like this. And then we get this random flashback about the earlier days of X-Men comics where Rogue had gained the abilities of Captain Marvel and still trying to learn how to actually control them. Now, with that being said, apparently her, Wolverine, and Gambit were in the Danger Room. She went too crazy and like wrecked the entire Danger Room and then left. And so Gambit's all like, hey, Wolverine, I'm sorry for what she did to you and also the Danger Room, but let me talk to her and see if I'm able to calm her down, which you do have Gambit go and do that. Now, for me personally, I kind of like this. And the reason why, because it really shows that no matter what, Gambit and Rogue are going to have their ups and downs, but they always being able to come to each other and work through their different problems. And so even though so far in the earlier chapters of this series, we do see them kind of constantly fighting or having some trust issues right now, we already know by the end of this series, they're going to stay together and being able to work through those problems, because every couple will always have problems. But the thing is, couples have to work together to work through those problems. And so when it comes to Gambit and Rogue, they're being that example, like, yes, they do have problems, but they are going to work through those problems. And so getting back over to the present day, we do see Gambit right now expressing the idea that he's still upset at Rogue for not telling him the secret about the suit that Forge had made. Now, for me personally, I really cannot be on Gambit's side on this situation right here for some reasons that I'm not going to get into, but just to see him get mad at his wife over the idea that she did not tell him about a secret about someone else is kind of wild. Either way, you didn't have Gambit realize that Forge is lying. And what I mean by that is Forge tells Gambit and Rogue that when it came to the suit he used in that one mission in the X-Men series, at the end of that mission, he got rid of the suit completely. But Gambit realized that Forge is somewhat lying. Like, yes, the suit is gone, but the tech that went into making the suit is not completely gone. And so you do have Gambit and Rogue leave, but Gambit was able to find the tech that Forge used to create that suit. And so now they do have a way to track down Manifold. Now you do have Gambit hand Rogue the tech that Forge used to kind of help create his suit. And so now Rogue has the ability to track down Manifold. Except when it comes to Gambit, he says he's not going with her at all. Now the reason why he is not going, because it really shows that they do have some issues to go through. But unfortunately right now, this is the worst time to sit down and talk about their problems, because right now Manifold needs their help. And so it's Gambit saying, go say Manifold and we'll talk later. But I'm not going with you, because I feel like if I go with you, the only thing I'm going to do is cause more problems for you in this mission. And so he just walks away. And so then you have Rogue being able to find Manifold. Now, when she does find Manifold, she realized that this is a trap. And matter of fact, when it comes to Manifold, he's not alone. He brought the other characters that were also kidnapped by this new bad guy, and they're also being controlled by this new bad guy. So you have Juggernaut, Electro, the Vanishing Man, Lady Deathstrike, and the Absorbing Man as well. But they're all being mind controlled by, well, our new bad guy here. And right now his goal is to have these characters defeat Rogue and then have her also be under his control. Now, this is where Rogue comes to find out how this guy is being able to control all these different characters. See, on the side of their neck, there's some kind of new tech where he is able to use that tech to control them. Now, when it comes to Rogue, she believes that if she is able to remove that tech from their necks, he'll no longer have control over them. The problem is, though, when it comes to this guy's tech, if they are connected to your body, there is a deep connection to the point where if you do pull it out, that person will die. And so the Rogue, she had no idea. And so she runs up to the Vanisher and basically grabs that tech, takes it out of his neck, and he dies just like that right in front of her. And so right now it's Rogue feeling like she is a killer, but she thought that she was going to save everyone, but realized that her idea was not going to work at all. But on top of that, when she did try to use her idea, she just kills someone. She feels like a killer. And so when we jump into the 4th chapter of this book, we actually do pick up 3 months in the past. Now, when we do, this is where we learn who is the main bad guy of this entire storyline. And that would be a guy known as the Power Broker. Now, this is the latest version of the Power Broker. There were other versions in the past, but this is the newest one. We see him right now showing off what he is capable of doing, which is giving other countries the power to kind of help protect themselves against mutants down the road. That's his whole goal, to find different ways to provide power. And so we see him right now trying to make a profit by showing off Juggernaut fighting against the Absorbing Man to say, hey, I have a new idea. Why not go around, collect different super villains, control them, and then sell them to make some money, but also these countries will now have a way to protect themselves against certain mutants. And so we do see certain people agree with his new idea. But getting back over to the present day, we do pick up with Rogue still kind of dealing with the idea that she just killed somebody. Now, even though she did kill somebody, you do have the other members who are still being controlled by the Broker begin to attack her. And so she has no choice but to defend herself against these guys. Now, this is the Broker still trying to continue the idea of hoping to control Rogue like he is controlling the other people. And so the battle does go on for a few more pages. Now, while the fight goes on, Rogue begins to lose to the point where they are able to attach the same tech that's on their neck on her neck as well. Now, she's not completely taken over just yet. It is a slow progress. It takes time for the tech to begin the ability to take over your body completely. And so right now, she's only partially in control by the Broker, but he is waiting for full control. But it does seem like he might get her and be able to use her as a way to make a profit, except that is when she is saved by Gambit. Now, this actually leads into us learning what is the problem right now between Gambit and Rogue. As a matter of fact, it's not just one problem. There are multiple problems when it comes to their relationship. Because when it comes to the Broker, he does not have complete control over Rogue. Like, yes, he is able to tell Rogue, hey, go ahead and attack Gambit, but she's still able to communicate. And so it's Gambit right now trying to tell Rogue, fight against his control, regain control of your body. Except it kind of leads into them talking about their problems, why they feel like their relationship right now is on the rocks. And we kind of find out that from Rogue, she's very upset about the idea that Gambit will not express how he feels. And so when it comes to going through different kind of difficult things over their relationship, he kind of just plays it off and moves on. But at the same time, she can tell that homeboy is hurting. And matter of fact, she gives us a great example. She says, look, you almost died recently. And she's right, because back in Knights of X, Gambit died. Now, you're probably saying, what's the big deal? Because when it comes to the X-Men, they have the ability now to bring people back to life. Yes, you're correct. But He died in Otherworld. And you had to remember, if you die in Otherworld, well, you come back corrupted. And so there was a huge if that Gambit could not be brought back to life correctly or at all. And so he was able to come back, but when he did, it's kind of like, okay, that was it, let's move on. But for Rogue, it's kind of like, no, dude, I can tell that it bothered you a lot. The way you're drinking, the way you're acting, the way you're doing a lot of things right now, it shows me that you did not process the actual events of you dying and being brought back to life. I don't know why I said proceed. Either way, it's Rogue saying, talk about your feelings. Now for Gambit, it's really more of, okay, well, here's my problem. You're too much in control. I can't breathe. Every time it comes down for us to make a decision, it's always about what you want, but not me. And that hurts my soul right there. And so it's right now the two characters expressing how they feel. And honestly, you know, Rogue does have some good points, and I guess Gambit does too. For me personally, it's really more of, yeah, Gambit, you're right, but at the same time, speak up. But for Rogue, it's more of, yeah, you're right. He should express his feelings, but at the same time, think about it, Rogue. It might be hard for him to express his feelings. Either way, you do have the two characters talk it out while Rogue is still trying to attack Gambit. Now, you do have the broker actually lose control of Rogue, and so right now, the chip in her neck is just telling her to attack everybody. But at the same time, in the middle of the fight between her and Gambit, she did absorb other people's powers like Electro. So now she's even more stronger than she was at the beginning of this fight. And so then we jump into the final chapter. Now, when we do jump into the final chapter, it's really more just Gambit still trying to get through to Rogue. Like, hey, listen, I know the broker no longer has control of your body, but that chip still does. And right now it's making you go crazy and attack me. But I need you to go ahead and, like, you know, fight through that, because you could literally kill us right now. And so you do have Gambit and Rogue go back and forth to the point where you do have the book kind of show us that when it comes to Gambit and Rogue, no matter what, these two are always going to get back together. They're going to have their ups and their downs, but no matter what, they're always going to come back together. It's like they're made for each other, and that is very important when it comes to Rogue and Gambit's relationship. It really shows that if you're going to be a couple, you're going to have to fight through your different problems together, not separate, together. And so once you have Rogue being able to fight through, you know, the control, she's good again. And she's able to lay in the arms of Gambit. Now, the day is not done yet, because let's not forget, the main bad guy is the broker. He's known for doing different kind of things to give people power or give them weapons to kind of help them fight against other things. And so when it comes to the broker, he's all like, okay, so you basically destroyed my latest base, you destroyed my tech, and you kind of ruined my chances to make huge profit today. You know what? I'm going to take you guys out myself. And so we do see him use some kind of tech that gives him extra strength to hopefully fight against Rogue and Gambit. And really, when it comes to this battle, it doesn't last that long. I mean, at first, you do have Gambit and Rogue work together to fight against the broker. And while fighting against him, really, it's just more Rogue giving him a huge beating. Like, homeboy does not stand a chance at all. But either way, it is her just giving him one heck of a beating. Now, at the end of their fight, you didn't have the other people that he was controlling take over. They're all like, hey, Rogue, Gambit, let us be the ones to finish him off for what he has done to us. And so you have Lady Deathstrike, Juggernaut, Electro, and the Absorbing Man just jump the broker. And also Manifold as well. Now, let's not forget that when it comes to this entire storyline, the only reason why we had Rogue and Gambit go against the broker is because of Destiny. She had a vision that said, hey, you know what? We need Manifold. He's going to be very crucial when it comes to the survival of the mutant race. And so when it comes to Rogue and Gambit, they went out of their way to go get Manifold. Now, he said no, but now with the tech in his neck, he no longer technically has free control over his body. And what I mean by that is, remember, the broker did place a tech in every single person that he had kidnapped or held hostage. And so if you are able to get access to that remote, you control that person. And so when it comes to Rogue, she found the remote that controls Manifold and brought him right back over to Destiny. And then you have Destiny put him inside some kind of tube to be kept in stasis. But this is Destiny saying, Rogue, I understand the idea that you feel like you are betraying your people, that you're betraying the X-Men, that you are betraying Gambit. But at the same time, you have to realize everything I'm doing, everything you're doing is to help us and the mutant race survive. I'm telling you, a war is coming and certain moves have to be taken right now as a way to help us win that war. And so it's her telling Rogue, you're gonna cross some lines. And when you do cross those lines, I hope you realize that, hey, you had no choice but to cross them to achieve greatness for the mutant race. Now, the book does end on a good note where you do have Rogue go back home and she tries her best to cook some gumbo for her man, but we already know Rogue is not really a great cook. So when it comes to her gumbo, let's just say it needs some work. As a matter of fact, guys, when I was reading this book, I actually got reminded, thanks to Facebook, about a episode of the 1990s X-Men cartoon show where Jean Grey is trying to cook Christmas dinner and homegirl cannot cook, and it's Gambit saying, yo girl, you need to add some seasoning on this food because I'm telling you right now, it sucks. And when I see Gambit right now tasting Rogue's gumbo, it just reminds me of that episode because he's all like, yeah, honey, it's gonna need some work. I'm gonna be honest, it needs some work. But it does end on a happy note where it does seem like the two characters were able to work through their problems and they're not getting divorced, they're not gonna break up, they're gonna stay happily together forever, and the book ends. Matter of fact, at the end of the last chapter, there's a recipe for Gambit's gumbo, which honestly, I don't know how to make gumbo, but if this is the way, I might try it. Either way, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.